But we're not here today to talk about politics. Instead, we are here to separate the rhetoric from the reality on what the budget reforms championed by Governor Scott Walker and passed by the legislature have done for our state. And we are honored today to have several of those legislators who made the tough choices and who stood up for the taxpayers here with us, starting with the State Assembly Speaker, Jeff Fitzgerald. They said the sky would fall. They said that thousands of public employees would be out of work. They said our children's educations would suffer. They said the state as we know it would cease to exist if Governor Walker's reforms passed. And what's happened? The sky is still there, and Wisconsin is stronger than ever.
We made a different decision. We said that instead of taking the one-time federal stimulus money and dramatically expanding government, we're not going to do that. We actually turned back things like the money for high-speed rail because we knew it was enough. Then January came, and the unions remind us, well, we wanted to be at the bargaining table. We were more than happy to give away about $100 a month for their health insurance, which is still a bargain, and give away the ability to pay for their pensions and their health care. That is a lie. That is a lie. So it's important to remember that the Democrats offered very similar terms, but much more inexpensive for public employee unions, and they walked away from the table. So this idea that not having to make the changes to collective bargaining, we could have balanced our budget anyways, is a lie. So when you hear somebody say that, just remind them about what happened in that lame duck session. Remind them that the unions walked away from the table when they had the chance to negotiate a better deal with somebody who was already on their union paid for side, and they walked away. But if you look at what happened around the country, California, with a similar budget situation, massive cuts to local governments, huge property tax increases. They increased the income tax. In the LA school district alone, they laid off 5,000 teachers. So when you look and say, how many layoffs did we have here in Wisconsin? None. Because we gave the tools instead. If you look at other states around the country, in New York, Governor Cuomo decided that he was going to have to lay off 10,000 to 12,000 state employees in order to balance the budget because they could not get the unions to come to the table in a way that we proposed. Florida, he is now asking employees to pay 5% of their salary into their pensions. Granted, they didn't have collective bargaining, and that's exactly why he was able to get that done. Lastly, in Nevada, they had to furlough state employees, and all across the board, everyone took a pay reduction. That is what's been happening all across the country. So for your friends who are in the public sector who somehow say that Wisconsin's been doing things differently than the rest of the nation, we have been leading the way to say that we want every public employee to stay working, but to help us out by paying a little bit in for their pensions and a little bit in for their lives. For too long, when I would go and somebody would tap me on the shoulder at the grocery store, they would say, "You're doing the right thing." Real quiet, almost like they were embarrassed. And then as the summer went on, people would tap me on the shoulder, they'd be a little bit louder. But you know what we need for you to be now is people who are yelling that it's working. Not just whispering, not, trying to avoid the conversation in the grocery store. Thank you. Public employees, in 1 year alone, will pay $72 million in forced union dues. Because we have now made those changes in Act 10, every single public employee has the right to be able to pay those dues, but they don't have the obligation to pay them whether or not they choose to. So that is potentially going to save tens of millions of dollars for every single public employee.
I had furlough days, salary that was taken away by Governor Doyle and given back by Governor Walker. So I'd like to thank the taxpayers of Wisconsin for my benefits, and I'm not getting ripped off. And please, 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 please go to your friends, neighbors, and relatives and tell them on my part, please allow me to have the right to choose whether I want to contribute to a union or not.
94% of employers now think Wisconsin's headed in the right direction. Now, what happened in 1 year? Gee, I don't recall. A state budget that couldn't be balanced for a decade got balanced in one shot. Taxes on businesses and business owners that have been increased for a decade straight got reduced. A hostile regulatory posture was at least shifted into neutral. And we quit throwing money at our failing government schools and finally got serious about fixing the real problem. And I'm the guy that did that deal over in James U. City. You know what Scott Walker in the state of Wisconsin did to help me get that deal done? Nothing. Perfect. Thank you, Scott Walker. Wisconsin is open for business just like the sign says. Now there's some people in this state that don't want us to be open to business. They want to put it right back the way it was. At least that's what I think they want. I'm not sure because I don't speak drum. But I'll tell you something, you can't be for jobs and against the corporations that create it. You can't be for prosperity and then be against everything that makes it come to pass. You can't be for liberty and then surrender all yours back to the state. And you can't be for a working man and then against his right to work.